What's up YouTube, it's Ghostwriter15 back at it again with another Edison format video. Today's video is a top 16 Moreno Valley RBET Hero Beat deck list. This list was piloted by a player named Allende Ross. I know Allende from back when we used to play current format at locals. He's a great player, so I'm not surprised that he topped this event. So without further ado, let's just jump right into the deck list. So he's running 3 Diva, which is standard for most hero beat decks. You can opt to not play it, but it slows down your ability to easily get water monsters in the graveyard. And in this deck, you need water monsters in the grave for absolute 0. It's also hard to run over big monsters without Diva, so I'm not surprised that it's often main decked. He's also running 2 Spine Gilman. This card's a brick, but unfortunately you have to play it if you run Diva. You can try running 1, but if you draw it, now you have no longer easy ways to make level 5 synchros. 2 seems to be the standard choice. He's running 3 Alias, which is a staple. If you're not playing 3, I don't know what you're doing. And he's playing 2 Honest to beat over big monsters. He decided to main deck double Snowman Eater. This event was held in SoCal, and there's so many Hero Beat players here. It's also really good against Blackwings, which can be a problem, and these are probably the 2 most popular decks of the format, so it makes sense to main deck Snowman Eater. And now he's playing the 1 Stratos, which is obviously a staple. It's a free +1, not much else to say here. And for the last monster, he's only playing 1 Ocean, which I think is fine. If you're running Divas and Snowman Eaters, I don't think you need to play more than 1 Ocean. Ocean isn't very strong in the early game, but in the mid to late game it can be very powerful to add back your Alias, or even bounce back Stratos to your hand. Now for the spells, he played Heavy Storm and MST. Those are staple back row removal cards, most decks play them. And then 3 Miracle Fusion. This card lets you bring out a monster with a built-in Regeki effect, which is absolutely insane, no pun intended. Right now, this card is probably the best spell card in the format besides Future Fusion. And speaking of Future Fusion, he also played Future Fusion in this deck, which is pretty much a staple in Hero Beat. It's not as strong in this deck compared to something like Diva Hero or Dragon Turbo, but it's still good enough to play. If you dump Alias to the grave, your Hero Blast is automatically live now. And he's playing the 3 Gemini Spark, which I think is a staple. I don't know how the top 8 Hero Beat list did it without Gemini Spark, but hey, he made it work somehow. I think Gemini Spark is extremely broken. This card makes it awkward for your opponent to activate traps on your opponent's Alias or on your Alias without going -1. My favorite thing about Gem Spark is that it can pop just about anything, and it's a quick play spell, so you can use it as soon as you draw it. The card's definitely nuts. Next, he ran 2 Rotas and 1 E-Call. Or 1 Rota and 2 E-Calls, my bad. Said it backwards. I think these are the correct ratios if you're playing only 1 Ocean with 3 E-Call. What tends to happen is you draw all your hero monsters and now you have no targets when you end up drawing your E-Calls. For the last 2 spells that he decided to play are Double Upstart Goblin. I personally prefer 3 to maximize consistency, but maybe he felt that he didn't need 3, or maybe he just didn't have enough space for the 3rd one. And onto the traps, he played 2 Fiendish Chain. So this is a really interesting choice. Not many players know that Fiendish Chain is actually legal in Edison because hardly anyone plays it. It wasn't until a few years later that it became popular in the meta. I can see this card being really good in certain situations, and it's one of the few ways to add effect negation to your deck without committing to something like Skill Drain. And on top of that, it also prevents the monster from attacking. I like to see more players playing around and messing around with this card to see how good it actually is. You never know. It might start to see more play. And next he ran 2 Bottomless. This is basically a staple. Not much else to say about that. He ran two Hero Blasts. Most players only run two because it can brick in the early game. But once you have that alias in the grave, this card becomes a +1 in card advantage. He ran two Deep Prison, which is also a staple. And the last four cards are TT, Starlight Road, Solemn, and Mirror Force. All really good one-ofs that make this deck really strong, and it's pretty much a staple in a lot of decks. So, onto the side deck, he ran two DD Crow and two Fossil Dyna. These are very commonly cited cards for decks like Frogs, Dragon Turbo, or Zombies. You just need to stop really special summon heavy decks. So these are two really great cards against that. And he's playing two Super Poly, which is becoming a lot more popular now for the mirror match and Frogs. This card is nuts. Not being able to respond to this card is what makes it broken. It's also really nice to use your opponent's cards as fusion material. And he also ran two Nobleman of Crossouts. This card is really good against Hamster and Raikou decks. Raikou and Hamster can be a big problem for this deck sometimes. Raikou activates during the damage step, so you can't chain Gemspark to it. Like, sure, you can use it before you attack, but that's not how you want to be using your Gemsparks if you don't have to. He sides one Brain Control, which is a pretty interesting card to be siding. I can see it being really good in the mirror match. You can use your opponent's alias for Gemspark. You play 3 Divas, so you can use what you steal for Synchro Material. And sometimes if you have an Earth or Water monster, you can make E-Hero Gaia or Ab-Zero. It's a very powerful card. So he also ran two Light Imprisoning Mirrors for the Fairy and Lightsworn matchup. Fairies can be annoying to deal with because of their recruiters, but Light Mirror completely shuts that down. Two Pulling the Rug for Frogs and Diva Hero. With Diva Hero getting more popular, I can see more players starting to run 3 of this card. This card's price has skyrocketed recently, and for a good reason. The card's insane. And the last two cards in the side are Double Dust Tornado. Some players side crazy stuff against you like Prohibition and call Alias, so you need answers to stuff like that. It's also good versus Blackwings. That way you can stop Black Whirlwind to make sure it doesn't stick around for too long. If you don't get rid of Whirlwind within a couple of turns, the game's pretty much over. And as for the extra deck, he ran 1 Gaia, 3 Ab-Zero, and 1 Fortress. These are pretty much staples as fusion monsters in the extra deck. I'm surprised to not see Wrapped in this here. It's usually played when you're siding Super Poly. Maybe he didn't have one, or maybe he thought it just wasn't needed. For the Synchros, he ran 1 Catastor to stop cards like Machina Fortress, 1 Goyo to steal stuff, 1 Bryonic because it steals games, 1 Black Rose to nuke the field, 1 Stardust to protect your field, 1 Colossal Fighter to crash with cards like Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, 1 Thought Ruler to gain life points and to protect yourself from cards at target, and the life point thing might actually be relevant in IRL tournaments because of time rules. And speaking of time rules, another card that gains life is Double Magical Android. I'm not surprised to see 2 of them here because level 5s are the easiest to make in this deck. And it's also a light monster, so it combos really well with Honest. And the last card he decided to play is Armory Arm, which I'm not exactly sure why he played this. He doesn't have any way to make it in the main deck. The only way to make this monster is with Brain Control if you steal a level 2 monster. I guess he didn't like the other options that were available to him, such as Flamvell Uraquizas. I don't know, I'm not really sure. But anyways, that's the deck list. Congrats to Allende on making top 16 with his hero beat list. And shout out to Keegan, aka E3 Yu-Gi-Oh, for giving me the opportunity to present this deck list to you guys. If you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. That's all I have for you today. This is Ghost Rider 15 signing out.